Have you ever wondered how spies actually see the world? I mean, really see it. The CIA doesn't just teach its officers how to do spy stuff. It gives them these incredible mental tools to decode reality itself. So let's dive into three of these frameworks and see how you can use them to master your own mind. All right, let's kick things off with a statement that probably goes against every piece of advice you've ever been given. A former CIA officer, Andrew Bustamante, flat out says your gut feeling, that instinct you're always told to trust, is actually your biggest liability. Well, that naturally leads to a pretty big question, right? If your gut is so unreliable, what on earth are you supposed to trust instead? And here's the answer. And here's the, at its core, CIA training isn't really about gadgets and secret messages. It's about learning how to systematically get past our own flawed, messy human emotions. It's about building a system to see reality for what it actually is, not just how you feel about it. And you know what the best part is? It's a skill anyone can learn. Okay, so this brings us to our very first tool, which is, and I'm not exaggerating, the absolute foundation of a spy's mindset, understanding the massive difference between perception and perspective. So perception, that's the gut feeling we were just talking about. It's your immediate, emotional, unfiltered reaction. You know, it's like that snap judgment you make in the first 2 seconds of meeting someone. It's fast, it's totally subjective, and a lot of the time, it's just plain wrong. Perspective, on the other hand, is the trained response. This is what happens when you deliberately take a step back, you ignore that first flash of emotion, and you start gathering actual objective data points. It's the difference between making a wild guess and making a real diagnosis. So the biggest takeaway here is that this is a choice. You can let your mind run on its default operating system, the emotional, reactive, untrained mind, or you can choose to install an upgrade and build a trained mind, one that's logical, deliberate, and driven by data. Spies are just people who are trained to make that choice on purpose. So once you've trained your own mind to see the world with a little more clarity, the next step is to understand the people in it. And that brings us to our second tool, a seriously powerful framework for persuasion. The CIA teaches that pretty much all human behavior, I mean everything, boils down to four core motivations, and they use a simple acronym to remember it, RICE. If you can master this, you basically hold the key to motivating, and yeah, even influencing just about anyone. Let's just break it down real quick. OTR is for reward, a bonus, a compliment, some kind of prize. I is for ideology. This is when you appeal to their big beliefs like patriotism or family values. C is for coercion, which is using negative stuff like blackmail or guilt. And E is for ego. This is not how a person wants to see themselves. And this right here is what most people, and definitely Hollywood, get completely wrong. We all think coercion, the gun to the head, is the most powerful way to make someone do something. But in reality, it's the absolute weakest. The strongest motivator by a long shot is ideology. If you can connect what you want someone to do with one of their core beliefs, they will do it for a long, long time. Okay, so we've got the right mindset, and we can now decode what makes people particular. But how do you put it all together? Well, our final tool is the actual process. It's the strategic playbook that the spies use to pull off any major objective. It's called SAD RAT. Yeah, I know, it's a strange name, but stick with me. This is the 6-step process CIA officers use to turn a foreign citizen into an intelligence source. But what's really fascinating is how this top-secret espionage playbook translates perfectly to the world of business, marketing, and sales. Here's how you could use it. First, you spot a potential client. Then, and this part is absolutely critical, you assess them. Are they the right kind of client for you in the long run? Next, you develop a relationship, build that trust. Only then do you go in for the recruit. In other words, you make the sale. Afterwards, you handle the relationship to keep it successful. And finally, you terminate it when the mission is complete. See, it's a full life cycle strategy. And if you're thinking, yeah, but does this really work outside of spy movies? Well, get this. Bustamante applied this exact process to his own company, and saw 300% annual growth 3 years in a row. The proof is right there in the results. So there you have it. That's the toolkit, a new mindset, a matrix for persuasion, and a strategic process of burn. So put them all together and they give you what the CIA calls an untrained advantage. Bustamante really hits the nail on the head with this. The huge advantage of being trained isn't about being some kind of genius. It's simply being aware that there's another option besides just reacting based on your feelings. Most people go through their entire lives and don't even know that other option exists. So what is your new edge? It's knowing your gut can lie to you. It's having a framework to see what really makes people do what they do. It's having a strategic step-by-step process for any goal you set. And maybe most importantly, it's knowing that while you have these tools, almost everyone else is still just running on instinct. Which leaves us with one final and pretty powerful question. You now have the toolkit that intelligence agencies spend millions of dollars to teach their officers. The world around you is largely operating on its default settings. The real question is, how are you going to use your new advantage?